Good morning and welcome to today's International Space Station update. Joining us here in Mission Control Houston at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Right now looking down as the Orbit 2 team is manning all these various consoles, monitoring systems on board the orbiting laboratory. Today's team being led today by Flight Director Matt Abbott, just walking back into the room as the station's currently out of voice communication as we wait for our satellites to hand over. You can see Matt taking a seat there, and right next to him at the Capcom position, serving as a communication link between all these flight controllers and our astronauts in space, is NASA astronaut Clay Anderson. This will be Clay's last shift as Capcom here in Mission Control, as he's preparing to retire from a very successful career as a NASA astronaut here in Houston. So with this last Capcom, we wish him all the best. But meanwhile, up in space, we have our crew of Expedition 34, the six-man rotation currently led by NASA astronaut Kevin Ford there in the front row on the left. And joining him are three Russian cosmonauts. Starting across the top row, we have Oleg Novitsky, Evgeny Tarelkin, and Roman Romanenko. All the way on the right there, you see another NASA astronaut, Tom Marshburn, and our sixth crew member there in the front row as well, Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield. Busy day for our astronauts on board the station today, starting off with Commander Kevin Ford, who spent a couple hours this morning setting up the station's robotic crew member, Robonaut 2. Robonaut's the first ever humanoid robonaut to travel into space, and right now has been going through a series of checkouts over the past year or so as they prepare to assign more and more tasks to Robonaut as a kind of a human assistance robot up there in space. Here you can see a little bit earlier today as Commander Ford was unpacking Robonaut from his resting area inside of the Destiny laboratory before he was moved through a couple of tasks by controllers in Huntsville. And aside from all this Robonaut activity, which we'll have more video of a little bit later, Commander Ford was working on the integrated cardiovascular experiment, setting up a monitoring system on his own person as they continue to track any changes in the heart muscle of these astronauts during long duration exposure to microgravity. Also doing a little bit of maintenance activity today, cleaning out the bacteria filter and replacing it inside of the Destiny laboratory. Moving on, Russian cosmonaut Oleg Novitsky was inside of the service module, continuing some work that's been going on since last week. He's doing some minor repairs to some of the interior panels inside of that module. Aside from that, he was transferring some of the urine waste from the station's tanks over to what's known as the Rodnik tank inside of the 48 Progress vehicle. It's one of the unmanned cargo craft. Currently, two of those docked right now to the station. And one of his other major activities for the day was the Russian bar experiment, which looks to study various means for detecting any depressurization inside of the station structure. He was assisted in that today by Evgeny Tarelkin, another of our Russian cosmonauts currently on board. Tarelkin started his day off with the Russian Sprut experiment, which is an ongoing investigation of the various fluid distribution inside of these astronauts' bodies, again due to that microgravity environment. Aside from that, he'll be taking some microbial air samples throughout the Russian segment. Our third Russian cosmonaut, Roman Romanenko, was busy transitioning the station computer network inside of the Russian service module over to a backup configuration and performing some SINAR ocean observations. Those are an ongoing search for bioproductive water areas that are then used by researchers down here on the ground for scientific searches and also fishing operations. He was also inside one of the Progress vehicles over in 49P, filling up that Rodnik tank. Meanwhile, Canadian Chris Hadfield was gathering up a lot of tools and items that he'll be needing for an upcoming water on-off valve installation inside of the European Columbus module. He was also working on the potable water dispenser in the U.S. segment, cleaning that out. And then just a little earlier this morning, he got a chance to speak to some students at the school named after him in his hometown of Ontario, Canada. And then our sixth crew member, Tom Marshburn, started off his day doing a vision test as part of the health maintenance system, also inside of the regenerative environment control and life support system, or the ECLIS system on board the station today, transitioning over some of the software over that helps to control the urine processor assembly. We'll also be cleaning out some of the fans in the Destiny Laboratories intermodule ventilation. Aside from all of these crew activities today, last night a reboost of the station was conducted. That happening at about 8:15 p.m. Central Time. It was a 3 3/4 minute firing of the thrusters on the Progress 49, which you can see there at the very aft end of the station attached to the Zvezda. This was done in order to raise the station's lower orbit by about 1 statute mile in preparation for the upcoming single-day launch and docking of the next Progress resupply ship, Progress 50. And then the final activity of mention today will be the resumption of robotic refueling mission work with the Dexter special purpose dexterous manipulator. That'll resume later this morning after a 1-day hiatus following a few hiccups in the system yesterday.